Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I hope you're all well. I'm filming this short video to celebrate the milestone that we reached last week, but also to take this chance to respond to all the comments, suggestions, and even questions I received from you so far, both here and in my Instagram account. So this video will be a little bit different from the rest of those that I posted in this channel. For those of you dropping in for the first time, my name is Yao Cong and I'm a musician based in Singapore. I make weekly videos on my experiences as both a musician and freelancer so far. If those are topics that you are interested to learn more, do consider subscribing. And for the rest of you guys, thank you so much for supporting me on this new project. All the comments, all the Facebook sharing, all the likes, you know who you are and I really appreciate all of you. This is probably a good time to also share why I decided to start on my YouTube journey. My first video was posted on 22nd of May, and I think for a lot of us, the last few months have been very strange. For musicians and freelancers in particular, all teaching and performing work has effectively stopped all of a sudden, and I think it will take a while before things can get back to normal for our industries. And I can see so many of my friends trying things like a cappella on the app, doing all kinds of reaching out in their own ways, and I thought that YouTube would be a way for me to share my experiences so far and also to form a little community to help tide us all through these crazy times. Okay, the first question I got is from Twain, who says he'd like to hear more about the challenges as a professional musician and tuba player. So what's life like on the other side of the music stand? Twain is actually a very good buddy of mine and we used to play in the same band together. He plays the euphonium. Now he's a very successful businessman, owning a few gyms and also a personal trainer. So to respond to Twain's comment, I think performances for all musicians are some of our most visible work, but there are actually a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that people don't see so much. So I think the hardest thing to do as a professional musician is to try and juggle all the various demands of our career. So for example, teaching, performances, and I also do a little bit of like planning, organizing, managing sometimes. Each of these tasks take a slightly different headspace, and I think to do them through a day or through a period of time where there are many things going on at the same time is usually quite challenging sometimes to switch from one thing to another. I think when things get back to normal, I might do a bit of a behind the scenes for some of these projects and things that I do in my life. So if you are interested to see more of that, do leave a comment below. And the next one is from Vetra_Vogue48. He or she says, orchestra. Well, I can't tell you how much I miss playing in orchestra, and in fact this is probably the longest I haven't performed for a while. My last project was in January, where I played in OMM's Ride of the Valkyries, so that was quite a big project, and I think there was supposed to be quite a few good projects this year, but I think now we just have to hang in there and wait till this is all over, and I can't wait to perform again. And moving on to the next one, we have two very similar suggestions. From Joan, she says, can you give tips on audition and stage fright? And from Junho on Instagram, he says, audition preparations. So thanks both of you for the suggestion. I'm definitely interested to do a longer video on this soon, but for now I think I'll briefly touch on this. I think stage fright is perfectly normal. All of us go through this, and it's something that shows that we actually care about our performances. And in fact, it's not true that as we get better, stage fright goes away. If anything, the pressure on our performances actually ramp up as we get better on our instruments. So there's usually two things I like to think about in terms of handling stage fright. There's the physical side of it and also the mental side of it. So for physical side of it, I think an easy use of practice is to do something that gets your heart rate pumping a little bit more to simulate the physical side of stage fright. So you can do something like running on the spot or doing a bit of jumping jacks, then play your instrument. That is, well, not quite the same thing. It actually can help to make you feel like you are a bit nervous. And then in terms of the mental side of it, I try to tell myself to think of my nerves as excitement. So I try and think, I'm excited for this performance, I want to do well. So it's kind of like a positive reinforcement rather than a negative, I'm scared or I'm nervous kind of thought. And in terms of audition preparation, I think three tips that come to my mind. The first thing being, you try and visualize the day of the audition as much as you can. So if possible, where is the venue, who you're going to play to, visualize like the perfect version of yourself, waking up in the morning, getting yourself warmed up, and then arriving and playing very well. That positive visualization helps in making me more confident. The second tip is probably to always arrive ahead of time. Don't be rushing on that day, because it's very hard to perform when you are feeling nervous already and rushing. But of course, don't arrive 3 hours early, because sitting around can make you more nervous as well. And then the last tip is, when we are doing our excerpts, whether they are band or orchestra excerpts, it's very important that you play as though you are playing in the whole orchestra or band at the same time. So you need to know the music well enough, and then when you perform those excerpts, I think if you do it well enough, the panel can also feel like the whole orchestra is playing. I think that's always the sort of the state that we try to prepare our excerpts to. I hope all this helps. And moving on, we have one from OngZR101. He's a student of mine actually, and I know him very well. He says, most embarrassing moment in orchestra. I think I've definitely many moments in orchestra where I've embarrassed myself. But I think I'll just share 3 of them that come to mind immediately. The first one being, I was playing in an Om rehearsal, I can't remember, a few years ago, and I was waiting for a long time, so I was not involved in the music. And I think as brass players, we all know we either take out a book or we start playing on our phones. We're not supposed to do this, but usually the conductor is fine with this so long as we come in again. But I must have been watching Instagram or something, and I accidentally pressed one of the videos and the sound came on. So then immediately my phone started having some marimba sound, and I was in a panic and I tried to turn off the phone. So already everybody was looking at me and I was like, oh no, what am I doing, But then when the rehearsal started again, so I just turned on my phone and immediately the phone started going off marimba sounds again, and I was so embarrassed. I ran out of the orchestra rehearsal, and I apologized to Prof Chan after that for doing something as silly as this. The second one that I did was actually just last year. This has never happened to me before, but in one of the delicate moments in Bruckner 7 last year, again with Om, I think it's the last 10 minutes of the piece, the whole brass was supposed to come in together, big chord, and I actually miscounted, and I think because the symphony was so long that day, I came in 1 bar early, so that was very obvious, and I think it shocked everyone, including Prof Chan also. So that was my yeah, that's something that I think about sometimes. But I guess with performance, that's one of those things where, it happens to all of us, so I guess you can't beat yourself too much about it. And the third one is a few years back now. I was playing for NAFA Orchestra. I remember it was Shostakovich Violin Concerto, and my part had a few mistakes, I think wrong bar numbers and everything, so I kept coming in at the wrong place as well. So I think for everybody preparing for any orchestra rehearsal or performances, it's not enough just to prepare your part. You need to make sure that it matches to the conductor's score as well, especially if it's handwritten. So those are the things that I remember as quite embarrassing in my career so far. And I have another question from Pep.Peppigo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Also a student of mine. He says, path to becoming a professional musician. So just last week I was a guest for Vincent's new podcast, and I actually shared a lot of in-depth in my journey as a musician so far. So if you're interested in that, I will definitely share when it's released and you can check it out. But for now, I'll just touch on what I've done so far briefly. Like yourself, I was a student in Dunman High, and back then Mr. Ng, our conductor, he was a very supportive and caring conductor who gave me a lot of opportunities to not just play difficult band repertoire, but also push me towards like solo music and everything. And while I was a student in band, I realized I fell in love with music, and that was something that I wanted to do potentially as a career. In fact, I actually wanted to do it from, I think, instead of doing JC to go to do music immediately. But my parents were quite insistent that I finish JC and Army, and then they will give me their blessings to go and further music. So I did that. I remember the year before I was about to ORD, I took a week off from NS and I flew to London with my brother, who was my accompanist for that trip, for 1 week. So we were there. I auditioned for both Guildhall and Royal Academy, and then lucky enough to win a scholarship to go to Guildhall School. And then I did my degree in Guildhall, and after I finished, I came back to Singapore and I have not left since. So that's my journey so far. I think I still have quite a bit to contribute and hopefully be a part of in Singapore. So I have another question from Instagram from Kai Curry. She says, the pros and cons of being a musician, basically what it is like to be a musician. So thanks very much for this suggestion, Kai. I'll probably do a video on this quite soon. I think being a musician brings up both the joy and frustration because we love what we do. Of course, I love the flexibility of the job, but in a situation like this, it can also mean the security of having work lined up is not quite there. And I think being a musician suits certain personalities more than others. But having said all that, for me personally, I think it's something that I would never choose to change even in this situation, and I really love this job. And moving on to the next comment, it's from Ray the Pumice. Hello Ray, she says Tuba Trivia. Well, honestly, I'm not quite a tuba geek. I'm not one of those people who can enter a room and identify all the different tubas and different models and everything. They all look like tubas to me. But having said that, I found 2 books in my library that talk about tuba, so I can show you on video. Maybe I should learn more on this actually. This one, first one, the Tuba Repertoire book. Apparently we have so many repertoire. So this book catalogues all the repertoire for tuba and solo tuba up to ensemble. And this one, the Tuba Family, the history of tuba. So maybe after I read those books more in detail, I'll probably do a video on that. But thank you for your suggestion. And the next one is from Kiara Tong. Kiara used to be a student of mine in TJ, and she says Warmups. So thanks for the suggestion, Kiara. I'll definitely do a more in-depth video on this at a later date. But to answer your question briefly, I think the first thing to recognize is that warm-ups are not the same for everyone. What works for me might not necessarily work for you because we are different. But having said that, I think there's a few principles on warm-up that is universal for everyone. The most important thing about warm-up is to get comfortable on our instruments, right? And I think the thing to really focus on is to get our air flowing. So you can do breathing exercises, and we can definitely do things like scales, arpeggios, anything that has a lot of air flow. And then from there, I will definitely go into things like articulation exercises and make sure that my warm-up covers quite a big range so that after my warm-up, I know that I'm ready to play whatever I need to play that day. Okay, and on to the last few comments or suggestions that I got on Instagram. I think most of these are not quite serious, but I'll just mention you guys as well. The first one is from Ayang. Hello Yenshan, and she says, Crash Landing on You OST. Well, it's not quite my style, but I'll do it with you when you come back from Melbourne. So next two are from Tan Tan and Chris Chong. Tan Tan says, which club is the best in Singapore? And Chris asks, what is it like being the face of Zouk? So at this point, I think I need to shout out to Yana's beautiful Photoshop skills for this photo from years ago. This is obviously not true because they're looking for a girl. Well, I guess it brought a lot of laughs to all of us at that point, and every year around this time it comes up again. But if I have to pick a club that I love the most, probably because it's Zouk, also it's Capital. I think that's probably where I like. And the last one is from Chong890, Zhen Zong, another one of my band friends from my Daman days, and he asked, how to breathe through fingers? Well, Zhen Zong, I have no idea how to do that for now, but once I know, I'll definitely make a video on this and dedicate it to you. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. My next regular video will release either Friday or Saturday afternoon, and the topic this week is on money, how I used to save money or spend my money as a student, and also some of the lessons I've learned being a freelancer in Singapore. So do look out for it. I'll see you next time. Thank you.